You want to own a data center. You picture blinking lights, endless rows of servers in a climate-controlled cathedral, the physical home of the cloud itself. You picture chips, GPUs, the silicon everyone's fighting over. Here's the twist. The chips are the easy part. The real story is buried in water bills, diesel tanks, substations, and concrete, and it will cost you more than 10 NFL stadiums combined. Adjusted to today's money, a single hyperscale data center campus runs north of $2.5 billion to build and equip. That's not a stadium. That's the entire annual budget of a mid-sized country's public health system, poured into a building most people will never see and couldn't find on a map if you paid them. So let's build one from scratch, category by category, and watch the money vanish into concrete, copper, and cooling towers. Data centers didn't start as billion-dollar fortresses. In the 1940s and 50s, a data center was one room, one mainframe, a stack of punch cards, and a technician in a lab coat. Everything that happened between then and now, the redundancy, the scale, the staggering cost, traces back to one flaw nobody planned for. Computers hate heat, and heat is the one thing computing produces in unlimited supply. Every dollar this industry has ever spent has been an attempt to solve that single problem, at increasingly absurd scale. The flaw never went away, it just got more expensive to manage. Start with land. You'd think you build where land is cheap. You don't. You build where power is cheap, water is available, and fiber already runs nearby, which narrows your options to a handful of counties in Virginia, Iowa, and a few other states. Which means you're bidding against Amazon, Microsoft, and Google for the same dirt. A 100-acre site in a top-tier market can run $40 minus $60 million before a single foundation is poured. Here's what nobody tells you going in. Land was never the real constraint. Power was. Category 2, the substation. A hyperscale campus needs 100 to 300 megawatts of continuous power, roughly what a city of 200,000 people draws around the clock. You don't just plug into the grid, you often build your own dedicated substation, help fund transmission upgrades for the utility, and sometimes wait years for an interconnection slot to open. That infrastructure alone runs $50, $150 million. In some cases, operators have paid to build entire natural gas plants just to guarantee supply. And in the last few years, Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft have all quietly signed nuclear power deals. Not because it's trendy, because reliable, carbon-accountable power at this scale has become the single hardest thing to secure in the entire build. The common belief is that data centers are a real estate business. That's not quite right. What actually happened is that data centers became an energy business that happens to have a building attached to it. Category 3, the servers. This is where the number people expect finally shows up, and it still stings. A single high-end AI training rack loaded with the latest GPUs runs $250,000 to $400,000. A hyperscale AI campus can house tens of thousands of them. Total compute hardware for one large facility can exceed $1 billion, and unlike the building around it, this equipment depreciates fast. 3 to 5 years, and you're ripping it out and starting over. You're not building a warehouse. You're building a warehouse that eats its own inventory every few years and demands a replacement. Permanently, forever. Category 4, cooling, the cost nobody outside the industry thinks about, and it's brutal. Traditional air-cooled facilities can burn through millions of gallons of water a year on evaporative cooling. One large campus can use as much water as a small city. As chip density has climbed, many operators have shifted to liquid cooling, which cuts water use but multiplies the plumbing and mechanical complexity. Cooling alone can eat 10 to 15% of total build cost, and it never stops running, not for an hour. Because the moment cooling fails, the hardware above it starts failing within minutes. That's the flaw from the very beginning, showing up again. Heat. Every category in this build exists downstream of managing it. Category 5, redundancy. A data center that goes offline doesn't just lose money, it loses trust, contracts, sometimes lawsuits. So operators build in redundant power feeds, redundant generators, redundant cooling loops, often rated N+1 or 2N, meaning the entire critical system exists twice, in full. That roughly doubles the mechanical and electrical cost of the whole facility. You're not paying to build a data center, you're paying to build two of almost everything, so that when one fails, and something always eventually fails, nobody outside the building ever notices. Category 6. The diesel. Every hyperscale facility keeps a fleet of backup generators on site, with enough fuel storage to run at full load for 48 to 72 hours. A large campus might have 20 to 40 generators, each costing $1.2 million plus fuel contracts and environmental permitting on top. It's an entire fossil fuel power plant sitting dormant in a parking lot, existing purely as insurance against the one thing that would end the business instantly: an outage during a contractual uptime window. That insurance policy isn't theoretical. In 2021, one misconfigured network change at a major cloud provider took down parts of the internet for hours. Airlines grounded, banks frozen, hospitals scrambling. Many of them had no idea their systems even depended on that one facility. No war, no natural disaster. One line of bad configuration, and every redundant system in the building couldn't stop it, because the failure wasn't in the hardware. It was upstream of all of it. That's the gap redundancy can't close. Category 7. The labor most people never think about. A finished data center doesn't run itself. Physical security, HVAC technicians, network operations staffed 24/7, and specialized engineers who can diagnose a failing power distribution unit at 3 a.m. A small workforce, but a highly specialized and expensive one to retain. Losing the wrong senior engineer mid-incident isn't a staffing problem. It's a business continuity problem, and everyone in the industry knows exactly which names on the team they can't afford to lose. All of that, the land, the power, the servers, the cooling, the redundancy, the diesel, the people, and the industry still hit a wall nobody fully priced in. There isn't enough power left to give. In the past 2 years, utilities in Virginia, Georgia, and Ireland have all warned that new data center interconnections may be delayed by years, not months, because the grid simply can't generate and deliver electricity fast enough to keep up with demand. Some regions have started rationing new approvals entirely. The bottleneck for this entire industry stopped being money. It became electrons. That's the collapse hiding in plain sight. An industry built on the assumption that power would always be available, cheap, and fast to secure, running headfirst into a grid that was never designed for this kind of concentrated demand. Some operators are now waiting 3 to 7 years just for a utility interconnection date. Billions of dollars in committed capital sitting idle because you cannot run a GPU on a spreadsheet. Add it up: the land, the substation, the servers, the cooling, the redundancy, the diesel, the labor, and one hyperscale AI campus can quietly clear $3 to $5 billion before it processes a single request. If a mid-sized data center operator were its own country, its infrastructure spending alone would rival the GDP of a small nation. Zoom out, and the echo is impossible to miss. The data center has become the 21st century's version of the railroad, or the power grid itself, physical infrastructure so foundational that nobody thinks about it, right up until it fails or runs out of room to grow. Every AI chatbot, every streaming show, every bank transfer, every cloud photo backup runs through a building like the one we just built. A building whose real cost was never about the chips at all. Owning a data center was never about owning computers. It was about owning power, water, land, and redundancy, and betting that the world's appetite for all four would keep growing faster than anyone could ever build for it.